Hello, everybody. I'm going to get started on talking about chapter 6. Now, as a constant reminder, the more you take notes, the better you take notes, the better you're going to help, you're going to understand, and you're going to be able to retain some of that information that can be used for test taking. It's all about getting that information to go from the from the short term memory to the long term memory. So, without further ado, chapter 6. Now, chapter 6 involves discussion of psychosexual development in infancy and childhood. So, this is going to include sexual curiosity, sex play, masturbation, the role of family, and teaching children about sexuality. We're going to listen, discuss the physical changes during puberty for both boys and girls, praise influences of adolescent psychosexual development, including parents, peers, the media, discuss adolescent sexual learning, including masturbation. We're going to talk about normative behavior, virginity, first intercourse, trends in teenage pregnancy, and understanding sexual education, right? So, babies derive sensual pleasure from stroking, coddling, and this is infancy and childhood between the ages of 0 to 11. Okay, so Borman, the first phase of sexual development is a cutaneous phase during which an infant's skin can be considered a single erogenous zone. So if you are a parent or you're an older brother, older sister, or auntie or uncle, and you've picked up one of your relatives and rub their back or or blew cool air onto their forearm. They love that. Okay, it is considered an erogenous zone for them massages, gentle massages, or when they take baths. They begin to learn how they should feel about their bodies at a very young age. So also learning about the gender role they are expected to fulfill. This happens between the ages of 0. It happens in infancy, as early as infancy, but it goes and stretches from 0 age of birth to 11. So infants begin to discover the pleasure of gentle stimulation soon after they are born. It's early, so babies can observe discovering the pleasure of gentle stimulation. However, the body actually begins its first sexual response even earlier in the utero. So when sonograms have shown that boys have erections already in the utero, okay, when their mom is holding them. Okay, when they are in the womb, this begins a pattern of erections that will occur throughout their lifetimes. So, signs of sexual arousal in girls, though less easily detected, begin soon after birth and include vaginal lubrication, genital swelling. In some cases, both male and female infants have been observed experiencing what appears to be a small orgasm, right? Unbelievable, but true. Obviously, an infant is unable to differentiate sexual pleasure from other types of enjoyment. So they might just be thinking that it's just happy feelings, right? So some viewing these as sexual responses are adult interpretations of normal reflexes and do not necessarily signify the infant's desire or interest. What it does reveal is that the capacity for sexual response is present soon after conception. Okay. When we talk about childhood sexuality, our children learn about their bodies through various forms of sex play, right? Their sexual interests should not be labeled as bad, but may be deemed inappropriate for certain times and places or persons. So we have to have these discussions, with our children, right? With our relatives. So children need to experience acts of physical affection and to be told non-threatening about good, bad, and touching by the infants. So we talk about Calderon. Sexual interest should never be labeled bad, but may be deemed inappropriate, for certain times, places, or persons. So if their natural curiosity about the sexuality is satisfied, they are likely to feel comfortable with their bodies as adults. Children participate in sex play with children of their own sex. Okay, this is common, right? So things we should be teaching our kids. Um, Hands will get to wandering, hands will get to wandering, right? Things that we should be teaching our children, between the ages of 3 to 11, whether you like it or not, we should be teaching this that masturbation is healthy. Okay, we shouldn't, condemn them for doing that, or we shouldn't be mad or embarrassed or ashamed of our child for exploring. This is something that all children do. This is natural. Negative responses from adults only will magnify the guilt and anxiety a child is taught to associate with this behavior. So children often accidentally discover that playing with their genitals is pleasurable when they're left alone in their bedroom, when they're left alone at night to go to bed. Sometimes this discovery happens on accident. So by age 4 or 5, they have usually learned that adults consider this behavior nasty. So typically between the ages of 6 to 10, children begin to conceal their sexuality, right? So we're going to take a little time and look at this chart. It has the age breakdown on the left, ages 2 to 5, 6 to 9, 10 to 12. Take time, take notes, and reflect. It looks at the percentages of their different behaviors, from standing too close, to touching their own parts, to touching their own genitals at home, to looking at other people. Some children, as they become older, become very interested in the other sex, with 24% for boys, 29% for girls. Look at these different variations. Take time, take notes, reflect. Now, when we talk about the family context, think about the things that we were taught. What were you taught? Think about what was learned in your household. What did you guys talk about in your household? What did you learn in your culture? In the family styles of physical expression, modesty, privacy, and nudity may vary. This varies from culture to culture, house to house, right? So some are comfortable with nudity in a variety of contexts. Others are mostly very modest. So the styles of modesty can be compatible with the formation of sexually well-adjusted children. Accept and respect the child's body and nudity. Do not punish or humiliate a child for seeing his or her parents naked, going to the bathroom, or being sexual with each other. In how many households is it like a response, or you get out? We get mad at our children. We should not humiliate them, right? If they happen to see us naked, you want to take an opportunity to have that conversation with your child and say, hey, what you just seen is adult time. It's no need for me to be mad at you. There's no need for you to be embarrassed. But we would like for you just to respect our privacy in this moment. Respect a child's need for privacy as well, right? When a child is going to bed or going to sleep, or you happen to catch your child masturbating, it shouldn't be a moment for shame. Okay. The families also vary in the amount and type of physical contact in which they engage. Okay. So all children and adults need freely given physical affection from those they love. All right. Children should be told in a non-threatening way what kind of touching by adults is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And we need to be clear on that, right? We don't want any type of confusion. This is acceptable. This is not acceptable. It is not necessarily to frighten a child by going into great detail about the kind of bad things that others might do to them, but just to bring about awareness. So we should listen to children and trust them if they are expressing something that is happening out of the family context, or out of what has already been described as appropriate behavior. Sexuality in adolescence between the ages of 12 and 19. So puberty is a biological stage of human development when the body becomes capable of reproduction. So puberty begins at 9 for girls and at 11 for boys. And the actual age varies. Sometimes it varies among ethnicity. It varies among world regions, right? Adolescence. So you'll see in puberty where a woman, a young girl that is developing into a woman, will start to develop hips. She'll start to develop breasts. Both boys and girls will start to develop pubic hair. For a boy, you'll see that his voice will deepen. You'll see that he'll start to develop secondary hairs around his face. His mustache will start to come in. He may develop sideburns and facial hair. His shoulders will start to broaden. His testes will descend. These are all signs of puberty. Adolescence is the social and psychological state that occurs between the beginning of puberty and acceptance into full adulthood. This is what we refer to as adolescence, right? So, as described previously, as a child approaches puberty, the levels of hormones begin to increase, triggered by the hypothalamus. Right. This is triggered by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is in the brain. The hormones called gonadotropins stimulate activity in the gonads and are chemically identical in boys and girls. The resultant is higher levels of male and female hormones result in the development of specific external signs of sexual maturation, including the onset of menstruation in girls, spermarchy, development of sperm in boys, right? So you look at the figure on the left, which is a young girl developing into a woman. You will see that the underarm hair starts to develop, breast development, rounded body contours, where a woman will start to get what we refer to as curvy pubic hair, enlargement of the uterus, clitoris, the labia, and she will begin to menstruate once a month. We refer to as menstruation, right? So the pituitary and the adrenal glands, right? And you see the figure on both male and female will develop acne, where the male on the right will develop a beard, voice changes, underarm hair, chest hair, muscle development, right? And shoulders will start to broaden, right? A pubic hair, the testes, enlargement of the penis, of scrotum and testes. Spermarchy has to do with now this boy that is going from boyhood to manhood can develop sperm and can now get someone pregnant, right? So these are all hormonal changes. Okay, psychosexual development. We talk about as adolescents physically mature, they are still learning about their gender and social roles, right? And we want to help that development. Okay. And we want to have conversations. They may also struggle to understand sexual feelings, their gender identity, their sexual orientation. Menstruation for girls and the onset of ejaculation for boys are sexual milestones. Nocturnal emissions, appearance of semen during sleep, precocious puberty, appearance of physical and hormonal signs of puberty development at an early age then is considered normal, right? So psychosexual development, numerous factors increase or decrease sexual behavior. Children and young adults learn from parents primarily as observers rather than by asking directly about sexual matters. Parents can contribute to positive sexual health by fostering an open and honest relationship through communication. Adolescents receive a lot of information about sex from peers. Endorsing the double standard of sexual prowess for boys and sexual modesty for girls increases risk of poor sexual functioning and lower sexual satisfaction, right? So we have to do away with this a double standard that we are saying that boys are able to explore sexually where we are shunning girls for doing the same thing. Okay, this leads to poor sexual functioning. These leads to poor sexual attitudes that are developed by young ladies. So we have to we have to be even in that. We have to communicate effectively, right? Sexual hype in the media can be balanced with information about real life. So we have this figure here. Figure 2 shows who teenagers say most influences their decisions, right? Take time, take notes, and reflect. The pie chart on the left shows non-Hispanic. Pie chart in the middle shows Black, right? And the pie chart on the right shows Hispanic. So we have white on the left, Black in the middle, and Hispanic, right? Bar graph shows a breakdown of teens ages 12 to 15, right? And on the right, we have teen ages 16 to 19. Figure 3 shows the percentage of parents who talked about selected sexuality within their adolescence, age 12 to 17 in the United States. Okay, so we have a breakdown from any topic related to sexuality, sexual risk, sexual desire, sexual satisfaction, and sexual practices. Take time, take notes, reflect. Adolescent sexual orientation and gender identity. So during adolescence and early adulthood, sexual orientation becomes a salient issue for most youth. Sometimes questioning is used to describe individuals who are examining their sexual orientation. So, for 2 to 10% of the population, romantic attraction to members of their own sex will begin to grow. This happens in adolescence. Society and also experimentation may happen in adolescence. So, society has difficulty dealing with adolescent sexuality and accepting the fact of a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer adolescent sexuality has been especially problematic, right? We know this. So, adolescence and sexual orientation and gender identity continued. The assumption of heterosexuality or heteronormativity has resulted in societal homophobia. And homophobia simply is the irrational fear of sexual minorities. This is perpetuated by parents and school. Very few lesbian and gay, bisexual, or queer teens feel that they can talk to their parents about sexual orientation. That's why support groups are invaluable. Support groups can help developing a mature identity, and even the more formidable for LGBTQ plus individuals who also face issues as a participant or as somebody that represents people of color. So there's that double stereotype of LGBTQ and folks that are people of color that are within that community. Table 2 simply shows the percentage of heterosexual and LGBTQ plus students grades 9 to 12 who indicated that they had experienced selected events, right? And if you look at the descriptions on the left, it goes from skipped school because of safety concerns in the last 30 days, all the way on down to the bottom of they felt sad or hopeless. Look at the percentage. The percentages are much higher than the heterosexual students. Members of the LGBTQ plus have higher percentages of having these experiences of being bullied or feeling suicidal. So as we come to a chart, take time, read, take notes, reflect, and note that the study included a not sure category that is not represented in this chart, right? Because whenever we are collecting data on sexual behavior or feelings that are connected with identity, there is a smaller population of people that are not comfortable identifying adolescent sexual behavior. So hormonal changes during puberty bring about a dramatic increase in sexual interest, right? In the male or the young boy, they say when your testes drop, as my uncle used to say, your nuts drop, right? And start to release hormonal changes. You start to become interested in either the same sex or the opposite sex, right? So whether these results in sexual activity is individually determined, so children have not already begun masturbating, they will likely begin with the start of puberty, and you will notice that if you are a parent or uncle or auntie, you'll notice that your family members, your young adolescents, will start to take longer showers, or they will start to spend more time in their bedroom exploring. So among females, masturbation begins later, and prevalence is higher in males in all age groups. Right? Motivations for sexual activity are numerous and complex, including curiosity, pleasure, desire. In spite of these drives, teens are waiting longer to have sex for the first time. So what constitutes having sex or hooking up is debatable and context specific, right? Your sexual debut often carries enormous personal and social meaning, symbolizing an important milestone, right? In some cultures, they view when a young boy or a teenager or a young man has sex for the first time, he's arriving. The same thing that happens for a woman. The term is a deflowering or loss of virginity, right? This is an arrival. This is a milestone. Lack of sexual competence is associated with numerous risks, right? From chapters that we've already talked about that have dealt with sexually transmitted infections and diseases. All right, with table 3, these trends among 9th to 12th graders in the prevalence of sexual behavior from 1991 to 2017, it goes from ever had sexual intercourse all the way to were ever tested for HIV, not counting blood donations, right? So look at the percentages, take time, take notes, reflect. Figure 4 is sexual intercourse among young people in the United States, right? Starting from age 10 all the way on up. Reflect. Teenage pregnancy and birth rate. So access and convenience of contraception are primary factors in today's lower teen pregnancy rates. Higher rates in the U.S. than any other comparable countries. Higher rates among low-income women and women of color. Pregnancies lead to a downward spiral of lowered expectations, economic hardships, and poverty. So teenage mothers have special needs, especially in health care and education. But teen fathers can typically contribute little and face many hardships of their own, right? So if you put a teenage father and a teenage mother, they are going to have healthcare issues, they're going to have financial issues, and they're going to lack knowledge statistically in terms of communication and what to do moving forward. Okay, figure 5 shows births per 1,000 females aged 15 to 19 in the United States. So since 1991, birth rates have declined dramatically, such that they are now at a historic low, right? And this may have been happening through shows like Teenage Moms, where folks are becoming more aware through education and are becoming aware of how to mitigate pregnancy, through birth control measures or using protection, right? Now, in figure 6, births per 1,000 females aged 15 to 19. So although rates have fallen across all groups, birth rates are still higher among African Americans and Hispanic teens, right? We want to keep it 100 about that, right? So look at this chart and look at the disparity between Hispanic and Black, and look at those differences between Hispanic and Black and white and Asian. Take time and reflect. Sexual education. So although abstinence is something that a few practice, we have to talk about abstinence-only sexual education has been a focal point in education policy in the U.S. So in 2016, under President Obama, teen pregnancy prevention programs were established because I think what the Obama administration realized is that very few teenagers are even practicing abstinence. So that's when teen pregnancy prevention programs started to become prevalent at many of the middle schools and high schools. So age-appropriate, evidence-based education and life skills to help teens make responsible decisions. These tend to be deeply rooted cultural and religious norms that have impeded that implementation, right? Because a lot of these religious organizations view abstinence as the end all be all, right? So in terms of taking a comprehensive approach, we talk about abstinence as being one of the factors or something that you can do to prevent teenage pregnancy and STIs. But we also, in turn, still should be educating about reproductive anatomy, dating, marriage, STIs, sexual pleasure, sexual orientation, as well as gender identity, right? So there is no one size fits all. All right. So Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States, SIECUS, developed the guidelines for comprehensive sexuality education. This is widely recognized in several countries worldwide. Sexuality education is a lifelong process, acquiring information, informing attitudes, beliefs, and values about identities, relationships, intimacy, and adult sexual health. Most professionals agree it is one of the most important ways we can help young people become sexually healthy adults. Wow, we have covered so much in this chapter, right? All the way from birth through adolescence, through from infancy to young adulthood. This has been a chapter that was rich in information. From dealing with what we can do to talk to our young adolescents. We identified that communication is key. We've also identified that we should not make our youth feel ashamed for exploring, right? This happens through education. This happens through bringing about awareness that these occurrences, these changes, going through puberty, exploring one's body is something that is natural. It is not something to be ashamed about, and it's not unhealthy. And as always, take some time to go back, reflect on your notes, and I'll be seeing you all again.